Hello, this is a recording of a live session from Spark 2021. We hope you enjoy it.
Hello, good afternoon and welcome to Spark 2021 Ignite. I'm delighted to introduce Chris and Martina from Creative Leamington, who will be having a series of conversations with a group of up-and-coming creatives from the local area. So this is sure to be a very positive, dynamic and energetic session, which we all need on a Monday afternoon. So over to you, Chris and Martina.
Hi there guys, good afternoon and welcome to Creative Leamington's intro session. Creative Leamington, we are a creative production company who are based here in Leamington. In fact, we're currently in Mill Street, where we're part of Warwick University's Creative Futures Incubator. But we'll talk to you a bit more about what we do and how we do it after we've shown you a little visual taste of how our year has gone since the last Spark conference. Creative Leamington was born from a monthly networking event that myself and Martina put on just under 2 years ago now. We're working as dancers here in Leamington, and we were doing interesting stuff behind closed doors, but we really wanted to connect with more creatives that were also doing interesting things behind closed doors. So we set up Creative Mornings, a monthly networking event, which included a free breakfast and free talk from a speaker talking about their work in the creative industries. And through that, we met lots of really interesting people. And then last year, we wanted to take that a step further and work and collaborate with some of these people that we'd met. And we started putting on events and projects locally. Our aim has always been to make the town more of an engaging and exciting place to live and work. And particularly, we felt that Leamington has a great identity. We all know it's an amazing place to live, but we felt like there could be some more spaces to house youth culture, fringe cultures, subcultures, the things that really are the building blocks of an exciting creative place. You may have seen some of our work last summer when we converted a neglected car park into an open air street art gallery. We worked on the Frontline project with graphic designer Danny Coyne, and more recently we started a new program of work called LIT, Local Young Talent, which focuses a lot more on youth culture and young people. And Martina is going to tell you a bit more about that.
So in December last year, we piloted Lit Market, giving 12 local young makers an opportunity to showcase and sell their products using an empty shop window and QR technology. On the back of the success of this pilot, we have decided to expand this model to include more shops and giving more opportunities to many more artists to showcase their work. So Lit Festival will open in the spring and will bring our small business community and young creatives together in a month-long indie festival supported by a new interactive digital platform. As part of the work we do with young people, we have been collaborating with 2 students from Leamington Spa College who will be your host for today. Katie and Olivia have been curating and producing our Creative Mornings newsletter. And today they will interview our panel of incredibly talented creatives as part of our Lit Lab program. Our Lit Lab program is our series of forums, workshops, lectures, and support for young creatives. So I am very, very excited to welcome today Emmerdale actor Ash Palmisano. Thank you very much, Ash. Senior UX designer for Sega Hard Light, Billy McMillan. Thank you, Billy, for being here today. And filmmaker and screenwriter, Joseph Wallace. At the end of the session, also Titilola Daudu will, that is from Coventry 2021, will join us to speak more about opportunities for young creatives as part of City of Culture. But without further ado, I will pass the baton to Olivia and Katie. Thank you so much.
Hi guys, so I'm Katie. I'm 20 years old and I study a high national diploma at Leamington College. I study graphic design and photography. I love reading, writing, especially poetry, watching films, listening to music, running, playing piano, dancing, baking, pretty much anything creative. Over lockdown, I spent most of my time making arts and crafts, which I sell on my Etsy store, Katie Jones Art Studio. I've completed commissions, paintings, pet portraits. I do pebble art, bit of everything. Recently, I've been doing a lot more digital illustration. I've done portraits of a local young band called Miriam Adams, which was really cool. You can check out all my work on Instagram. Over lockdown, I also started working with a couple of other young people on a project called Better Faces in My Time. We're a community project raising money and awareness for mental health charities through creative activities, which in turn help to benefit our community's mental well-being. We've exhibited at Rugby Art Gallery and Museum and created a calendar, which is still on sale on my Etsy store, and it's only £5. And all the profits are going to charity. The charities are Coventry and Warwickshire Mind and Black Minds Matter UK. So far, we've raised over £100. So we've definitely achieved a lot as a youth-led community project. And I'm currently working on a website so that we can have a lasting legacy. As Martina said, I am also part of Creative Mornings Leamington Spa, which is another amazing opportunity. I write and curate the newsletter we send out each month, including interviews with the speaker, what's on in Leamington, and illustration inspired by a monthly theme, and features on local artists, which is something that I really want to do more of. So if there's anyone listening that wants a shout out, a little article about themselves and about their work, if you're Leamington based, get in touch because we'd love to hear from you and we'd love to set that up. I'm so lucky to have met Martina and Chris and Eleanor Beckett, who founded Better Faces in My Time. These opportunities have been amazing, and I'm so excited to keep going, keep building an amazing foundation for my career going forward. Leamington Town has certainly provided me with a lot of great opportunities, and I think we just need to look closer to find them as young people. I finally have a direction in my life and I'm confident of where I want to go, what I want to do. And these experiences really helped me realise this purpose, and I will also benefit my career invaluably. Yeah, thank you.
So before I start, I just wanted to say a big thank you to Chris and Martina, because without meeting them, me and Katie wouldn't be here being able to talk to all of you today. So a massive thank you to you both. So I'm Olivia and I'm 19. I don't actually live in Leamington. I live in a little village in Northamptonshire surrounded by sheep and fields. So I was massively drawn to Leamington, not only because of the college, but also the massive creative community there is, which is something I don't have here. I started at Leamington College 2 years ago doing the Art Foundation course, and I've since then moved on to do the Higher National Diploma in Graphic Design and Photography. Graphic design is something I've always known I was interested in, although I didn't know what it was until secondary school. I thought art and fine art was the only way to have a creative career. And as Katie will know in our drawing lessons, I'm not a big fine artist. So graphic design is definitely where I want to go. And the H&D at Leamington is really giving me the skills and pushing me forward to achieve that. I love working with Creative Mornings and Creative Leamington. It's given me the opportunity to meet so many other creatives and access to opportunities in Leamington, which again, I wouldn't have even known about had I have not started with them. Since lockdown, I've been working on my portfolio through college, doing some freelance work that is coming. And like Katie said, we've been working on the newsletter every month, which has been amazing. I'd like to talk a bit about some work I do, which I'm really passionate about. So I work with a charity called Teams for You, and they're a Welsh-based organisation, but they work across the UK as well. I first came across Teams for You in 2019 now, when I was lucky enough to go to Uganda with them on a Develop with Dignity project. They work primarily in Uganda and Sierra Leone, but Eastern Europe as well. We went to Uganda to teach young girls and boys on menstruation. And in Uganda, this is something that isn't spoken about, isn't taught about. And when this happens to girls, they don't know what's happening to them. They have nothing to help them. So they drop out of school. And in Uganda, that's a very dangerous situation for a young girl to be in. And being over there, I was able to witness firsthand the impact this can have on so many young girls. So we go over there and talk to the girls and the boys, because it's important that they understand as brothers and husbands and fathers what's happening. We hand out reusable sanitary pads and try and keep them in school, basically. Since doing that in 2019, I've been working with the charity doing all their graphics work for them, which has been amazing. To know that I'm only 19 and I'm making such a big impact with my work is a really amazing thing. We most recently created a manual which will be used as a teaching aid in the schools, so that when the teams aren't out there, there's still some form of education. Obviously, this was, it's science-based. It talks about the body and puberty. And if English isn't your first language, then words can be confusing. I mean, they confuse me and I speak English. So the illustrations were needed, which was where I came in, and they needed to be simple and clear so that the children could understand it. It's recently just been sent out to Uganda and tested on some children, and the impact has been amazing, and they've responded really well to the illustrations. So that's really amazing. I'm carrying on working with them, and we've now got a new project to develop some more work to hopefully push the Develop with Dignity project further and keep children in school, which I think is the most important thing, especially over there. So obviously I also work on Creative Mornings, which Katie's already touched upon. So a massive thank you again to Chris and Martina for letting us be here today and giving us these opportunities.
Amazing. So we'll move on to the questions then. We're going to speak to Ash first. So you're currently working on Emmerdale as Matty, but it's been a long process to get there. So your journey has had ups and downs, but eventually you got to where you're meant to be. We wanted to start by asking, what would you say to someone who is at the start of their journey, but not really knowing where it is going?
That's a really good question. Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. For me, I had lots of ups and downs before getting this job on Emmerdale at the moment. And I think, like a lot of us, I struggled with confidence through a few rejections, a few knockbacks. And also alongside that, I was sort of going through some stuff myself. And I kind of ended up doing stuff and found myself in a job that I really didn't want to be in. It was kind of a situation where I was told, well, it's a bit unrealistic, mate, getting into acting. Maybe it's about time that you thought about getting a serious job, a proper job, I was told. And my dad was actually like, and there's nothing wrong with pie factories, don't get me wrong, but my dad saw an advert for a pie factory, but I just didn't want to do that, you know, and I was really still trying to get into acting. And I sorted myself out, became more confident. And I looked at who I used to be when I was younger. And I think what happens is we can so easily forget what we wanted to do and what we wanted to be because of the stuff that life chucks in your way and the pressures that people put on you. So I basically remembered what I wanted to do, which was acting. And, you know, I was told, as I said, it was quite unrealistic. But I feel like when you do something you love, it opens up opportunities. And when I started doing jobs on the side, I mean, I was working as like a full-time peasant at Warwick Castle, which was like an amazing job, even though I had to wear like leggings for a living. And I was trying to go to auditions on the side, and I was trying to meet people. And eventually I started meeting people that would open up opportunities. And long story short, eventually, you know, I got myself an agent. But the more I did, the more things seemed to open up. And it was really difficult. I had lots of rejections. Had to be an elf at Christmas. Short, cheeky chappy. It was an easy job for me. But then eventually, you know, I started getting the auditions for the jobs that I wanted. And, you know, it wasn't easy. I definitely got a few knockbacks. But I decided that it's exactly what I wanted to do. And then I eventually landed the Emmerdale job a couple of years ago now, nearly 3. And yeah, it's been amazing, really.
Thank you. It's really interesting. Did you always want to go into acting, or was there another path you thought about? And if so, how was it being an aspiring actor and aspiring creative in Leamington?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I always wanted to do something creative. That's like you guys, you know, that's always been my mind, and that's always what I've felt passionate about, and just it's the only thing that I felt like I was good at, basically. And there were lots of things that I used to do. You know, I wanted to be a presenter, I wanted to be an actor, I loved a bit of art as well. And you know, it's cringe really, but you know, I really used to believe it was going to happen. You know, I do little performances for my grandparents at the weekends and get involved in the school plays and stuff. But at the time, there wasn't much going on. You know, just listening to you guys and the projects that you're doing right now, it's so exciting. It's amazing. For me, I kind of was told, you know, it was a bit unrealistic, you know, small town, a guy in a small town getting a job on TV, maybe have a backup plan, you know, which is good and sensible advice, but actually, you know, you've got to go for what you really want in life. Otherwise, you know, what's the point? You've got to do what you love. So I went back into it, as I said, and I just couldn't help but meet people. And once I started meeting more like-minded people, I started getting myself into lots of different events. Opportunities opened themselves up to me. So, you know, I was told it was unrealistic, and that did knock my confidence, but actually that's completely rubbish. Being creative is something that you know, if you've got a passion for, you absolutely will achieve, and there's no set path or set way to do what you want to do as well. I would say that, you know, at school sometimes we're made to follow suit with everyone else, and we're made to kind of be the same. And actually what I love about the creative industry is that being a bit unique and being different and sort of being yourself kind of is what gets you to places. So yeah, a bit of a long answer, but I've always wanted to do it.
Great. We always love a long answer. So do you think the creative industry supports diversity? Because you're playing the first transgender character on a soap, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, for me, I mean, it's really cliche, but I mean, for me, as I said, I had to transition to become who I wanted to be in my life. And I was going for roles and stuff once I had the confidence within myself. And this role was presented to me. They wanted to do the first ever transgender character in Emmerdale. And by this point, I was going for auditions and stuff for non-trans parts. And I thought to myself, you know, how great it would be to kind of represent who I needed to see when I was younger. And as cliche and cheesy as that sounds, it really was a driving force for me to go for this part. And yeah, I mean, how amazing that I now get to be who I needed to see, but there's still room for more diversity. And what's really exciting is this is the very start of seeing lots of different types of people on screen. Matty's a character that lives in a Yorkshire village that had to change a few things about himself to be who he is. And, you know, it's great, and there's been lots of positive feedback, but this would never have been on TV when I was a kid. So I think we're going to see lots of doors opening. I know from talking to production companies, talking to people that are writing scripts at the moment, there's lots of different variations of being a human now, which is great. And you're going to see a lot more than that. I think they're doing some great stuff for diversity, but I think we're at the start of a lot more happening, basically.
What advice would you give to young creatives, you know, like ourselves, that are struggling to get noticed in the role they want or facing rejection, like you said you did when you were younger?
Yeah, definitely. Well, the most amazing piece of advice I've ever received myself was sort of take your space. And what I mean by that is kind of have the confidence within yourself that you deserve to be there. You deserve to be having this job, and you're just as good as anyone else. And I used to get really, really low and feel really rejected when I didn't get a part. In terms of acting, it happens all the time. You've got to kind of be okay with the fact that you're going to get rejected sometimes, and it isn't personal. The right part will definitely come along, whether that's an artist commission or a TV job that you want, or any sort of creative job. The right opportunity for you will come along. You've just got to stick at it. I would say, you know, meet as many people as you can. For me, you know, I sort of took a different route into getting into acting. I went back and did drama school a little bit later in life, and I used to do lots of different things. Like I go to different, you know, sort of creative groups. Like I got involved with Leamington TED Talk. I do a lot of work down the Foundry Woods that work with like lots of creation and ecotherapy. And the more different people I met, the more opportunities opened up. So I'd say to anyone watching this, you know, definitely get involved with Creative Lem, with what you guys are doing. You know, if you've got something you want to show the world, put it out there, sign up to the newsletter. It is scary, and it's scary putting yourself out there, but you've got to do it. And the more people you meet, the more opportunities will open up. People will want to work with you. They'll introduce you to friends. So I'd say just go for it. You've got nothing to lose, basically.
That's amazing. Thanks. We just have one last question.
Go for it.
What helped you become a successful creative growing up in Leamington? And do you think there could be more to support up and coming creatives now?
I mean, like you guys, you know, you're in a really exciting time for them. There's so much more stuff happening now than say 5-10 years ago. There's always room for more there, and I think it's about people being aware of what awesome stuff that we've got going on right now. You know, and I think slowly it's filtering out to people. But you know, I think get yourself involved, get down to Mill Street if you can, go and see the art down there, get involved in the Leamington, the Creative Leamington and the Creative Mornings, and sort of get involved in all the awesome groups that happen, because even I was shocked with how much awesome stuff is happening in Leamington right now. I think there's always room for more. And I think there could be more regular talks like this, the one we're doing today. I mean, I love watching this you know, because I had no one to kind of go to. My careers advisor was a little bit old fashioned and kind of didn't really give me the advice I needed, whether this is just brilliant. So I think, yeah, if there was more events like this, that would be a great way to start. Yeah,
I think we both agree. I think, I mean, the things that I've gotten involved with, I think I was in the right place at the right time.
Yeah, I was going to say that. That's exactly the same for me. It's just about hearing stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a lot out there, but I think sometimes you have to dig and find it. Yeah, so maybe like advertising and trying to get to the right places like the college. If you can get into the college, there's a lot of creative people there that would love to kind of jumpstart their careers, I think.
Yeah, I mean, if Chris hadn't have come in to our class that day, we literally wouldn't be here. So I think it's all about, like Katie said, the college. There's so many young people that want to push forward but maybe don't know where to start, and so many opportunities out there.
I would definitely agree with you guys. I mean, I had exactly the same experience myself, so I knew what I wanted to do. I'd made some changes in myself and I was ready to go out into the world and do it. And it took a lot of searching to find stuff. You know, I went online, I found a great course, as I said, that was for actors that perhaps missed the boat to drama school. And actually it was for actors that happen to be transgender, but there's all sorts of stuff like that for people that, you know, maybe can't afford drama school, and you've just got to look for it. So maybe with a bit more advertising, and sort of going into Leamington College, going around town and stuff, there'd be a lot more sort of interest and more opportunities for people.
Cool. Shall we move on to talk to Billy then? Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks.
Thank you.
So Billy, you are a senior UX designer at Sega Hardlight. Did you always want to go into a creative career? Have you always been interested in the creative sector? And did you ever plan to move into the arts industry, or did you just kind of develop into that role and find yourself there?
Yeah, that's a lot in one. I'll do my best to answer it. So if I've missed anything out, just let me know. So my mum tells this story of when I was little, and I've got lots of brothers and sisters. So kind of, you know, they were always going around friends' houses, and mums would be picking them up to come and collect them. And there was this one particular mum who came to collect my sister, I think. And I was just stood at the front door with like my mouth wide open, eyes as big as anything, just staring at this woman. She must have thought I was absolutely mental. I think I was probably 7 at the time. And when she went, my mum went to me. She's like, what's wrong? And I just went, oh, she was an artist. It just sounds so stupid. She was just wearing a smock, basically, and it looked like what you would wear to paint with. And obviously 7-year-old Billy was utterly amazed by this, and just fascinated, because like I say, I've always wanted to be an artist. I mean, other things I wanted to do was I wanted to be an architect. I would spend loads of my time just drawing, I'm sure rubbish plans of houses that I want to make when I'm older. And the other thing I was interested in was being a detective. And it just, I realised this the other year, actually, in user experience, the stuff that I do, it has elements of all of those bits that I wanted to be when I was younger. So that detective is in, I need to be asking the questions and find out the root cause of a problem and then find solutions for it. With the architecture, I'm looking at the flow of information and how someone moves through something. It's not a physical space in what I do. But it's a digital one, and of course art plays a huge part in what I do as well. So yes, I've always wanted to be some sort of artist, but I think Olivia, was you saying that you're not really into the hugely into the fine art aspect of things?
Yeah.
I know how you feel with that, and I always found myself, my work lent itself to graphic design more so than it did the fine art side. My teacher at GCSE level said, oh, you should be a graphic designer, and I was just like, well, what's that?
That's exactly the same as me. We always did art in school, but I liked it, but I didn't like it, if that makes sense. And then they introduced graphic design in like technology in GCSE, and it sort of made sense. I was like, oh, you can do art without being able to do drawing as well. Yeah, definitely.
So I think if you have a passion for something and you can't hit the nail on the head and you don't know what that passion is, it doesn't matter. Follow it, because you'll end up finding yourself in the situation you need to be in. User experience didn't mean anything to me a few years ago, but it actually, I think, is perfect for me.
From mine and Katie's own experience, we found that going through school and education, there wasn't much support. If you wanted to go into creative industry, it was always like, oh, maybe something else will be a safer option. So what would you say to someone that wants to pursue a career in art but is worried it might not give the stability or reliability that another career might?
Yeah, so I think even a subset of art, I work in games. I'm sure if you ask a lot of people now, they would say games isn't a career. And to be fair to them, I didn't even know games was a career. The way that I got into the studio that I'm working with now is I rebranded them with my previous job. And that's when I realised wait, I could do this. And I had that conversation with the game studio and ended up transitioning over into games. Because it's not just considered as something that you can do.
Yeah.
But it most definitely is. I mean, look at the unfortunate year we've had as an entire world. If we're talking about a business being viable, games has thrived in this situation, and it brings in a lot of money. So from my personal experience of games, then it most definitely is a career path that can be chosen, and a very successful one at that.
Amazing, thanks. So as a UX designer, you focus on creating experiences in the digital world, which by many is considered the future. What future do you see for traditional forms of design, like physical materials?
Yeah, so digital is definitely here. It's not going to go anywhere, but it will evolve. I don't think in 10 years' time it will be exactly the same as it is now. I'm not going to predict what it's going to be in 10 years' time. Like it'll be completely different, I'm sure. But the same stuff happens in physical design. That's not going to leave either. I myself am very tactile, but we are human. We need to go into spaces and touch things. And in a lot of the things that I do within a digital space, I'm always trying to draw that parallel between how would this feel in real life, and I'm trying to replicate that feeling. So we aren't going to lose that. I mean, talking about physical materials in particular, it's been in the news recently that Coca-Cola are looking down the route of making paper bottles rather than plastic ones. At the moment, we're in a crisis in the world. The environment is on its knees. And that's such an exciting time for designers, all the possibilities that can come out, transforming and challenging how we currently live our lives with the materials that we use. Not only needs to change, but that needs to change now. We need to do that very quickly. So I get hugely excited whenever I see university products and someone's come out and they've made packaging out of, I don't know, seaweed or some sort of fish-based material. I just think it's fascinating. But so I think it's never going to die. If anything, it's going to get much more exciting, and there's going to be a huge need for it.
Yeah, definitely. What would your advice be for, creatives that are starting out and trying to find clients, or if they're freelance, or work in industry?
I find it interesting how you go straight to freelance. Before I answer that, is there a reason why you've done that?
No. I mean, me and Katie, Katie can jump in here, but we both would like to do freelance work one day. But for us, we both feel that starting out in a company is obviously the starting point for that, and then eventually going freelance.
Yeah.
So when I was in university, so I studied graphic communication at Loughborough, and I think the reason I asked is because we were definitely instilled that same thinking. Is you're in the creative industry, people aren't going to hire you into a company. You're going to have to do this on your own. You're going to have the all of that structure around you and support yourself. And fantastic if people want to go down that route and that's what people want to do. Really, really good. But for me personally, it's never been what I wanted to do. I love people. I'm definitely not an island, and I want to work with everyone else around me within a team. So I never considered freelance being the route I was going to go down. But with the jobs that I've had, just to echo what Ash said, it's been, unfortunately, it's been that age-old rule of who I've never gotten a job from handing my CV or portfolio in completely cold with someone not knowing me. It's so important. Again, go to those events, watch those talks, but don't just watch it and not participate. Ask a question, and engage with all of the people around you. You never know. One conversation that you have might lead to something, and it will be that conversation that you think is going to go absolutely nowhere as well. It's fascinating how these things turn out. So I would say in general with the question, freelance is most definitely an option, but working within a company and having a fantastic career from that is also a massive option that's available for people. But whichever route you choose, engage with others and be present. Just like I think you two are an incredible example of getting involved and being a part of something. The more you do that, the more doors you're going to open.
Yeah, Great, that's really good advice, I think. And like, whenever I think of it, I kind of jump to like freelance, because I feel like everyone else I know is doing that. Like everyone I know who's successful is freelance. But I think for me, I don't think I would want to go straight into it anyway. I think going to like a company first and kind of setting yourself up, and then maybe even like staying there, you know, like you don't have to go into like a freelance kind of environment. So the graphic design industry is ever changing and constantly growing and developing and creating new technology. I think one thing I always worry about, like, there's like a lot of 3D technology coming out and a lot of like new digital stuff. It's kind of like, how do you keep up in a way? Do you have any advice of how to keep up?
Well, in terms of the programs, I think the more programs that come out, and therefore the more widely they're used, the easier they need to be to use. So the level for entry for certain things is a lot easier than it used to be. For example, with creating prototypes, there's a fantastic program called Adobe XD, and you can go in and you can put something, if you know how to use Photoshop and other programs like that, you can put a working prototype together super quickly. But in terms of keeping present, we're very lucky in our company. We have a guy who puts together a news feed every single day. So he'll send us snippets of news from the games industry, which is a very small thing, but it means a lot, because one, it's maybe a point of conversation to have with someone else in the studio, but also it knows that you're being kept in the loop. Even when you're super busy and you've got your head down on a particular project, you've always got that interesting thing to fall back on and keep your awareness. But personally, I'm signed up to Design Week, and I'll read my Design Week emails every day. It's actually the first place that I heard about the Coca-Cola bottles, but it is in BBC News as well. I read the news. I know you mentioned that you like reading. I also like reading. I read a lot. And if I don't have the time to read, then I'll listen to audiobooks whilst I'm cooking or walking or whatever else I'm doing. Reading and talking to people, like, again, keep the conversations alive, which I know is so difficult with the situation that we're in at the moment. But please, just do your best to keep that going, I'd say.
That's such good advice. I mean, I think me and Katie, we're both signed up to like Creative Boom and Design Weekly emails, like every day, just constantly hearing about the new stuff, because it's always changing and you do need to keep up. So what's your advice on how to stand out from the crowd in a career that's so competitive and so many people want to go into nowadays?
That is an interesting one. I think as a person, I don't feel it, but other people say I'm quite bold. I don't think I'm bold at all. I think we live in a world where everyone doesn't have much time and they're very consumed with what they're doing. And I think you can definitely stand out if you're that person who turns around and pays interest in someone else and isn't just focused on yourself. So when having a conversation, don't just make it about you, but bring in that person that you're talking about. In general, it's a hard one to answer, because I think everyone will have their own way of standing out. In terms of illustration, I mean, if you have a strong style, then that will very much help you, but just don't fall into the trap of that being your only style that you're able to do. There's definitely pros and cons of having a strong style in your work.
Okay. And what's so good about Leamington for young creatives?
So I'm gonna have to answer this one from the games industry.
Yeah.
It's in Leamington. I don't know. I mean, do you know about games much in Leamington?
Honestly, I know that there's a massive games kind of industry, but like I don't really know anything about games. It might be because I'm not a gamer.
Mm-hmm. It's exactly the same. I know it's there, but I don't know where it is or what it is really.
Yeah. So and you're definitely not alone, even for people who do play games. You know, I tell my friends that I work in the games industry, and they're like, oh right, in Leamington, and I'm like, yeah, in Leamington. It's like one of the main places in the UK to be if you want to work in games. And this is a very practical note for why it's good to be in Leamington in games. Because there are so many studios, if something were to happen, we're talking about stability. And I should, before I say this, I should say I have been at my studio for 5-6 years now. So hasn't happened to me. But if something closes down, you have all of the other studios around you that you can go to, and you learn from each other. We have meetups that we do, and there's a huge gaming community. Once you know about it, there is that huge gaming community within Leamington itself. And it's personally, I'm not one for London, so I can always pop out to a field and have a walk as well in some fresh air, which is just incredible.
And that's really interesting, because I think from like young creatives, a lot of people think that you need to go to London or the big cities to find the work and the communities, but it's definitely not true. Yeah. So I've got one final question for you, and that's, what is the best piece of advice you've ever received?
So it's very practical, and it was in my art foundation year, and a lecturer said to me, I was sat there, classic scenario, blank piece of paper in my sketchbook in front of me, and I didn't know what to do. And he could see the frustration kind of rolling off of me, I think. And he came up to me and he said, if you can't think, then do. And what he meant by that was, if you have this blank piece of paper, just make a mark on it. Just do something. Or if you don't want to make the mark on a piece of paper, go for a walk. Take yourself out of your head that you're stuck in and do something else, and then your thoughts will follow you. So don't sit down in frustration. If something isn't happening, move on to something else, and it'll come to you later.
That's amazing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll move on to talk to Joe now. Hi, Joe.
Hello.
Hi. So we wanted to start by asking, what have you been working on recently?
Oh, most recently, I would say I just did like a short video essay for an upcoming Blu-ray for a horror film. So that's going to be published through a company called Second Sight. So I do sort of like, when I'm not doing my own sort of film work, scripts, directing, I'll try and keep myself busy. Generally, that's just sitting in the house, downloading random videos from YouTube and editing it until I get something. Really forcing yourself to be creative, because in these days, it's been really tough, especially as a filmmaker, because my job is not necessarily to do everything, but to gather people from all different departments, creative heads from, cinematographers to costume to everything, and bring them together. It's been really tough to do that. So I've just been working on, doing what I can in a sort of pragmatic sense, but also focusing on my current screenplays, which I'm kind of excited about. And I have to be excited about it because no one else is.
Sure, that's not true.
It isn't true, but it highlights the point, which is, as individual filmmakers and creative people, you have to be enthusiastic about your work like no one else. You have to really believe it. And because they'll say they're interested, but are they? So you have to really keep pushing it until they are, and transfer that enthusiasm. I think being an artist or a filmmaker, or even a poet in a corner, you have to really transfer your enthusiasm. That's your main skill. It doesn't really matter what you're doing. The medium is almost irrelevant, whether or not you're sculpting something like, Patrick Swayze and Demi Moore in Ghost, or whether or not, you're doing a full-on, musical. You still have to believe in what you're doing and transfer that.
In your work, you focus on unrepresented voices and social issues. And why do you think focusing on those issues is so important today, particularly for young people?
I don't even know if I do that, but I know that it's become a trend. And I use that term lightly, because obviously there is a push in the industry to do more about diverse voices, whether that be women, filmmakers, producers, people of color, people from low socioeconomic backgrounds. And generally they all sort of tend to be in the same group anyway. So, we just, I don't know if I'm consciously aware. I mean, the last short film that I actually made that went to a film festival, went to a few festivals, that was not from my point of view. It was actually from it was looking through the lens of someone that I fundamentally disagreed with, quite a radically right-wing character who I did not share anything in common with. And as a director, as a filmmaker, I was really interested in just sort of stepping into someone else's skin. So it's an interesting question because, yes, as a mixed race, poor, guy in the UK, you'd think that I would be, pushing my own agenda, but actually it's, I don't know, it's like, yes, you can actually take a different point of view and still kind of have your own thing on there without actually, being so explicit about the whole unrepresented voices thing, because this is a complex issue, and I feel the weight of this issue, to be honest, but I don't want cultural segregation. That's what I don't want. I don't want people just to feel like because you're a woman, you need to be making films about women. No, you could be making films about anything. You could, you know what I mean? Like you're not set in your set ways, and that's the way I feel about it. So underrepresented voices, absolutely, 100%. But it's just not about a single tunnel vision on that.
That's a really good point. Thank you. So it can be hard to break the industry and get noticed. What advice would you give to young people on how to get their name out there and their work viewed by a larger audience?
Look, if you're listening to this, and you probably are, if you're listening to this, be yourself. Try and stand in your own skin. That's hard. I know that's a hard thing to do sometimes. If you're in the wrong group of people, if you're hanging around with, if you're in a dead end job and you're just thinking, this isn't working, and you're approaching 50, let's say, and you just think the opportunity's gone. No, remember Morgan Freeman was in his 50s before he made a movie, so there's still time. And I also think that you've just got to know who you are, and that can take time. And it's been one of those journeys where there is no definite point. You guys talk about, it's interesting when you talk about like freelance work and careers and things like that, because I that's just totally not my view. And I focus on just doing the work, and whatever happens, and I don't have this sort of, I'll start a company and then maybe I'll be a freelance. I'm a filmmaker. Like, if there's one thing I want to also say, it's scrap the word aspiring. Okay, you're not aspiring to anything. You are already what it is you want to do. If you're taking a picture, you're a photographer. You show it to people. Say you're a photographer. Change your Twitter bio. Do it today. Don't wait until you get an agent. Don't wait until you've graduated or you get qualifications. Just do it now, and become what you believe you are already. I mean, you just prove it to yourself. You're the only person that really needs to earn your own respect. And I think that it doesn't matter about the audience. It doesn't really matter almost about that, because when you speak from your own truth and you know who you are, I forgot the question, by the way. I'm just going on a little bit of a run and I'm liking it. So, well, why not? Just good things will come.
I think that's so interesting when you say, like, we're focused on obviously work and going into the industry, because I think from our experience, being in education, there's this sort of stigma. You have to go to university, then you'll get a job, then you'll work until you're however old, and then you retire, and that's the only way forward. I mean, me and Katie were speaking about this the other day. We didn't want to go to university, and that was a big thing to say in a sixth form, that I'm not going to go. And it's scary when there's not many people there to say, oh, that's actually okay, you don't have to go, you can do this, because there isn't many people that say that to you as a young person. So thank you for that.
I didn't go until many, many, many years later. And then I did a top-up course at Warwick College, actually, where you guys are based. And it was so good. And it was like that kind of flexibility. So don't worry about that. That's like, that's irrelevant. You do whatever it is that you're doing. To me, it was just to pay the rent. Like, I couldn't afford to go to, film school. Like, even film school, just to go back to what Ash was saying. When I don't know how old Ash is, he looks very young, but I'm 35 years old, right? And when I was growing up, I was 2001, and I was in a careers counseling thing, and they put all your skills into this little computer, right? And it will tell you like the top 3 things that it thinks that you should do. And the number 1 thing that they came back with for me was a croupier at a casino. I was like, I've never played cards in my life. And they were like, but the computer seems to think. And I was like, but I really want to go into film. Don't film. Film? No. You really should go into the next casino. I was a kid. Yeah, anyway. So I was like, I knew I wanted to make films. There was absolutely no support for that. I couldn't find the link between, you know, doing my GCSEs and just jumping on to that big whatever thing that was about going into film. It just wasn't a possibility. And now when you see all the you know, the tides sort of changed a bit, and people really are trying to get now. I think it's almost an overcompensation for the years that we've lacked seeing diverse voices or underrepresented voices or whatever. To be honest with you, I just think it's socioeconomic. I think there's a large part of this, it's a class issue, and I think we just haven't been looking at working class voices, regardless, you know, and that's it. And now we see a lot of investment. We see a lot of, we want to focus on this, you know, whether or not they do, you know, but be in line, and be in line with your stories, be in line with your attitude. You know, just be ready. So if you're listening to this, you think, yep, I want to be a filmmaker. I want to be this or that. Remember, it's not about the activity. You know, I could give you a piece of paper and I would expect you to have the same attitude on whatever it is, you know, or think about something in a different way. So just be ready for the time the opportunity comes. And hopefully one day it won't be about opportunity. It will be about choice.
Is there, I mean, you've given lots of advice for young creatives. Is there any specific advice for people that want to go into filmmaking as a career like you?
Practically, I mean, look, you've got like YouTube, you've got Vimeo, you've got so many different streaming sites. Content seems to be the thing. It almost seems like that's the priority. It's like, we don't really care what you say, as long as you're just producing something, you know? And so there, you've got to be a bit careful, because it's also about a craft. And you want to say, right, this is what I want to talk about, but I want to think about how I say it, you know, work with people that are interested in telling stories, creative stories, work with people that are interested in, you know, the great heritage of cinema, so that we can really stand amongst the greats and say, yeah, my film's worthy of a film festival. My film's worthy of getting into that official competition at Cannes. My film is worthy of this. And you feel good about yourself because, you know, you've actually achieved it. I think that comes with you know, really being passionate about the art form, whatever art form it is. I'm sure Billy's passionate about games, and, you know, she's had a huge upbringing with knowing, you know, a whole range of aspects, artistic aspects. And it's this very similar thing, I'm sure, with Ash, and the way he's informed his entire life goes into his characters, and he brings not just the words to the page, you know, he's bringing an entire world that supports the dialogue, the time, the rhythms. As filmmakers, we know that there is so much more than, you know, just the content. So what I'm saying basically is, have a good worldview, understand what's going on. Don't just stick in your own little box. Try and speak to different people with different points of view, so that you don't just become a dogmatic, you know, sort of just shouting about what you believe in. You really want it to be well-rounded, so that you can feel like you're telling stories that have nuance, that are not just binary, and that there's a room in there for everybody to exist. And so my advice, just to really hammer it home to people, is don't be scared if you don't know the answer. Just because I know, and that's the thing, you know, it's a very studious, you know, way of thinking, but we grow up in this education system that says that if you don't know this, you know, you're not good. If you don't pass the test, you're not. Well, art is a different thing. Art is about celebration of life. It's the only industry that celebrates life, what it is to live a life. Exhume your childhood, exhume those stories and really focus on what it is that makes you specific and unique to tell a story. Yeah, and then it doesn't matter about what it is you're talking about. You could be paid to do a gangster movie, but if you're coming to it from a very particular point of view, the way you hold the camera is what makes you unique. That's your perspective. So work on your perspective.
Amazing, thank you. So how did you deal with the competitiveness of the creative industry and push through to get noticed?
You know, I don't even look. Is there competition? Yes, there is. There's a competition for the audience's time. You know, because that's valuable. But is there competition between people, between artists? No, that's just not a thing. If you are who you are, there is no competition because no one else is me. I mean, you know, yeah, I look a little bit like RuPaul, so I guess, but we're in two different camps. Like, he's doing his thing, I'm doing my thing. But the more you know who you are, TT's like, no. I would look great in drag. I'm just saying. One day I'm going to go there. But you know, in terms of competition, I just don't see it. I think we're stronger together. We need to get together as a collaborative, as a community, and we need to really just help each other. It doesn't matter about taking the credit for whatever. Just help other people make and tell their stories, even if it's just, you know, in the oral tradition of sitting down and sitting by a campfire and telling a great, you know, story of the time, you know, you lost your dog and then you found your dog and then you know, something else happened and you know, you just give people the time. I think a lot of young people, they just, I don't want to generalize here, but they don't know how maybe to tell a story. You know, it's like just start by talking to each other. Just, you know, instead of this whole kind of like you know, it's, I don't know, I don't want to generalize. That's something I don't want to do. But I just look at my own family and I'm just like, Olivia, come on, are you sure you don't have anything to say? But I like to prod. Not you, Olivia. Sorry, Olivia, my cousin. Sorry, so there was a different. I was doing something. I would go in there, guys.
And finally, what was the best piece of advice you've ever received?
I've never been given any advice. I'm honestly, I don't think I've ever been given advice. My advice was be a croupier. That was the advice. I think the advice is not to listen to every piece of advice. Like, if I could give advice, it would be just you know, take everything with a pinch of salt. Everyone's specific to their own story. Everyone has their own thing. It's a bit like the Hollywood sign. The Hollywood sign is a big thing. It's a big sign. It's like white letters on like against a deserty kind of like hill, and there's no path, but everyone can see it. It's there, you know, but there's no way to get there. There's no road. So it's kind of like that. It's like, yeah, you all want, it's very easy to say that's the sign, you know, but it's hard to actually physically go and touch it. And it's very similar with success. It's a very good metaphor because everybody shines in their own way, and everybody's journey will be completely different. And yes, there are agents, and yes, there are film schools, and yes, there are certain paths that can improve perhaps your chances. But if you don't have anything to say, if you fundamentally don't have a point of view, then my advice would be, you know, maybe consider another art form, because you really do need to have a point of view.
That's great, thank you.
Thank you so much.
So I think we'll pass on to you, Chris and Martina now.
Hi guys, thanks so much for that. What we're going to do now is we're just going to answer a few questions. We've had a few questions come in over the course of each of the interviews before we then pass over to TT to let you know about what's coming up over the next months and year at Coventry 2021. So a few of the questions that we've had, I'll just put them out there to everyone and then just jump in if you've got an answer for it. So As an emerging creative, why base yourself in Leamington, in the Leamington area? Why not Birmingham, London, Manchester, or New York, Copenhagen, Berlin? What would help you stay in the area?
I mean, I was just thinking, like, sometimes it's better to be in an area that has a smaller hub of connections, because those contacts can really help, whether it's sometimes being in places that you don't know. You know, it's really hard to get those conversations going and to know what's going on. There's definitely merit in going to places and stuff. But for me, when I was a struggling actor, I didn't have the money I still don't, to live in London. And, you know, I really sort of struggled with that idea, you know. So I was able to base myself in Leamington, which isn't too far from everywhere, really. I mean, it's a short train journey to London, very short. There's loads of places you can get to really quickly. So it was a more affordable place to base myself. Plus, I had the connections that I'd already made and stuff in Lem, which were really grateful. But it is great to go out and expand, obviously, and you want to meet as many people as possible. But Leamington's just a great place to be based at the moment, and it's an exciting, you know, small, comfortable town. But I don't know, what do other people think? Maybe I'm wrong.
I think I go back to my point earlier in that I like fresh air. I want to be able to go on a walk. Like, just London just wasn't, and you know, certain places like that just weren't necessarily for me. A lot of it is, you know, you don't have to always go where you think the career is, but you need to be where you want to be.
Yeah, I really agree with that. Like, I think that's the thing, is that London can sometimes be a very lonely place, especially when you don't know anyone. And the lovely thing about Leamington is that there is that space. And, you know, I've lived in a few different places, and it's not till I moved away from Leamington and came back, I realised what a beautiful, lovely, creative, colourful hub it is. And yeah.
And let me add really quickly, sorry, Chris. Let me just say, my friends, a lot of them live in London, and a lot of them have, like, they're repped by the best agencies, and they're going to these BAFTA events, and they're hobnobbing with all these great people or whatever. And I'm in Leamington. And a few years ago, I was in Wagamama because I was working there as a waiter, you know, because I got to pay the bills. And so I'm just taking the chicken katsus out, you know, floating around, doing what I can. It's a really busy Sunday. I mean, I'm hating life, like, really. And my friend texted me that day saying, Joe, you really need to move to London. You know, you just need to get to London, be here. You've got a network of people. We can get you somewhere, you know, blah, 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 blah. And I was just like, you know what, maybe they're right. Maybe they're right. And anyway, I was taking payment for this one person, for this customer. And he said to me, you know, how long have you been a manager here for? And I said, I'm not a manager. I'm just a lowly terrestrial. And he was like, oh, so all this confidence, that's just you. And I was like, well, yeah. And he was like, oh, well, what is it you do? What is it that you, and I was like, well, I'm a filmmaker. I write, I produce, and I direct films. That's what I want to do. The whole chicken katsu thing, that's not me. And he was like, oh, well, that's funny. I'm a producer. I'm a film producer. And the last film I made was just at Sundance. So, you know, what are you interested in? And it just so happened that we started talking, and he liked my script, and we sort of took it from there. The point that I'm saying is, it doesn't really matter where you are. As long as you are you, in whatever job you're in, whatever day you're at, as long as you are you. Don't let the 9-to-5 minimum wage job or the uniform dictate to you what your value is. Be you every single time you see a person. Every single time, in any role. Say what it is you're doing, because you just never know who you're going to meet. And I'm telling you, in Leamington Spa, the community of people that I've met personally, from Chris and Martina to Jim Morton at the Leamington Underground Film Festival, to everybody, the community here is so strong. And I'm really proud of it. I'm really proud to be a part of it.
And sorry, can I just add, and I'm going to speak afterwards about theatre culture, but I think art is everywhere, and culture is everywhere, and creativity is everywhere. It's not in just the big cities. And that's speaking from a Londoner who has moved to Coventry for the job, for City of Culture. And I lived in the London bubble. You know, I've been in London since I was 3, and London's the best, it's great. And And I had my sister used to live in New York, and we were like, oh my God, London and New York, there's no place like it. And then you move out, and then you realize, oh, okay, there's art is everywhere. So I think, yeah, Jess, you don't have to be in these bigger cities, because sometimes, like Ash was saying, they will swallow you up. I think you find your magic wherever you are and make it work for you, you know, and you can travel. You can have a base that could be Leamington or wherever you live, and you can travel, you can do different things, absolutely. And I encourage that. But absolutely, you know, I don't think you have to live and be a part of like a big major city or something like that, you know. So yeah, just find art, or you be that art and place it wherever you are as well.
And also, Titi, we need regional voices.
Absolutely.
You know, what's wrong with a regional voice and an accent? You know, just like you got to represent. So you're stronger where you are.
Yeah. I agree.
Awesome. And just to follow on from that, the end of that question was, what would help you stay in the area? I think we're talking to converts anyway, to you're fully signed up to the Warwickshire lifestyle. But if there was anything as well that would help you doing your work here, what would that be?
I'm a big fan of collaboration. Apart from my wonderful job at City of Culture, I'm also a writer and a producer of theatre. And the biggest thing for me is collaboration. So even though I moved to Coventry for the City of Culture job, I'm like, you know, as soon as I got here, I was hitting people up. I was like, hey, this is who I am, and kind of collaborating. And I have done that since. And for me, it's like when you make some place, you know, an area your home, your physical home, as you know, when you connect and collaborate with people, that's what keeps you rooted as well. Because yeah, great art, I feel like, is really with lots of different people, lots of different voices. And so for me, you know, I love this area. As I said, coming from the south and now the Midlands, and hearing everyone's accent and thinking, well, for me, the best thing is just different mindsets, different points of view. And that's something that I find quite interesting. And it's funny, when I was telling my friends and family that I was moving to Coventry, they were like, why? Why? I don't get it. Not even Birmingham, you know, Coventry. What's in Cov? It's just grey. And I was like, no, don't get it twisted. It's like, it's so dynamic. And I use a word, when I work with some young people, we think of a word for where we're from or where we live. For me, Coventry in the West Midlands and Warwick is dynamic. You know, I think this place has got these really pockets of deliciousness that, yeah, you might not see straight away. You might see a lot of the concrete, because I was a bit like, whoa, okay, there's a lot of concrete. But you look through that little cracks in the concrete and there's just beautiful things that are happening. So yeah, I think it's like collaborate with people, talk with people. And I think we've all said it in different increments, just talk to people and speak out who you are and your identity and your art, because it all fuses together, and create work for yourself where you are. And then, yeah, you know, do your thing elsewhere, but definitely where your home is, you know.
Sorry, just trying to unmute ourselves. Brilliant. Another question that's come through is, what do the hosts and speakers think Spark delegates and WDC could do to support young people into cultural activity experiences and future careers, especially so it's not just for those who already have a foot in the door, a you know who you know thing?
So we're going to roll with this one. So something that I did last year, which I found utterly incredible to be a part of. And I went into reception and I spoke to 3 separate classes, so 90 young minds, and told them about, they're just learning about what jobs were. And I introduced the idea of making a game as a job. And it was fascinating just talking to them and, you know, asking them questions and seeing what they liked and, you know, just what their kind of concepts of the world were at the time. But I think it's incredibly important that, you know, we aren't speaking to people in secondary school or people in further education to push them in certain ways. We need to be speaking to people when they are tiny, when they don't have those preconceptions, because otherwise, you know, all of their things that they could have been doing and those abilities they could have been honing may have been lost because they've been told, no, that's not a lucrative career, you're not going to go into that, and they've been sidelined. So my point of view on that is it's important to get in early.
Yeah, I would really agree with that, Billy. Like, that is so true. I think that is the time where everyone hasn't really got the inhibitions that they have when they're older. And, you know, just for my nephew, he's obsessed with like Lego and building and designing, and, you know, Lego's still cool now, to be honest. I love it. But before anyone's told him like what to like, he's just naturally inspired, and he wants to be creative and do things. And I think that's the time to really encourage that and sort of show people that their talent, if you like, is whatever they're interested in, and that's their superpower in the world, and they need to work on that and invest in that.
Yeah, like Mozart was like 5 years old when he composed his first composition. Think about that.
That's crazy.
Like,
that is crazy.
He's 5. And his parents were like, you know, yeah.
See, I just composed like alphabet bites at 5, so I just arranged them in a nice way.
I was picking pieces off the pebble dashed wall and eating them at 5.
I was probably picking my nose. Yeah. George Michael created Careless Whisper at like a stupidly young age as well. Yeah, George Michael was Careless Whisper at like 17.
That's crazy.
He had that much pain.
Yeah.
17. I love it.
Wow, wow.
But wouldn't it be great if we had like a community, I remember social clubs when I was a kid, and we had just had social clubs, and we could just get to, you know, hang around with other kids and stuff and people of our age. And that would be really great if the district, Warwickshire District Council could in some way bring back an identity of a cultural space where people could, you know, feel like it was accessible. They could just walk in without any sort of credits, without any kind of history or baggage or anything, and just walk in and just meet people and just communicate, you know, without supporting a corporate coffee maker. You know, it would be really great if we could just sort of get back to a community-based, you know, springboard into our own ideas.
In places where, like, I mean, as a young person, I'm at a college or I'm at a school, if like it's other schools coming together as well, rather than just having like, because I know my school would have an event, maybe like North Lem would have a different event, but like if we did like an event together and we kind of met people that way, because then you're making connections at an even younger age.
Absolutely. Guys, this has been amazing. I wish we could keep on just going with a Q&A with you all, but we're going to move on now, and you've already met her, but we're going to do another introduction anyway, to Titilola Dawaldu. And Titi is a big part of Creative Leamington. You may have seen her speak at Creative Mornings, and when was it? October last year, October 2019. And she's also on our board. She's head of young people and youthfulness at Coventry 2021. And she's here to tell us also a bit more about the upcoming events to do with Coventry 2021 and opportunities for young people. So we're going to hand over to you, Titi.
Great, thank you. Okay, so we have some visuals. Brilliant. I'm a visual person, so I like that. So this is just the first slide, who we are. Really lovely, our colours. Okay, so Youthful Cities is a programme that I'm leading on, and it's a really major programme, and it's really about the youthfulness of a city. So not necessarily in age, like with, we talk a lot about youth and young people, but this is actually really about just mentally, and what does youthfulness mean? You know, it means playfulness and curiosity and all of that. So with Youthful Cities, it's really about the cities around the world, including kind of like Coventry and wider Coventry in Warwickshire, and how does that city work for young people, work for you, work for people. So this Youthful Cities is a year-long programme, and it's connecting Coventry with all of these international cities such as Nairobi, Bogota, Detroit, and Beirut. And there's organisations that we're working with each of those cities and in Coventry. And we are looking for a few roles. So up and coming, we need filmmakers. So we just need like really innovative, dynamic young people who can capture what we're doing. So it's all going to be digital because of Miss Corona. It's all going to be digital now. So, but how can we still capture this amazing year-long experience and create like mini kind of like films and just kind of capture the year? So we're looking for filmmakers. We're also looking for visual capturers. I don't think that's a thing, but I made it a thing. I think it might be called something else, but I just like the idea of it being called visual capturers. And what I mean by that is that when we're in our meetings and our workshops, it'll be really great to have somebody that is able to do graphic design and kind of really just capture our words, our thoughts, our feelings, our ideas into like visual graphic capture and things. So that's why I called it visual capture. So for all the graphic designers out there, that would be really cool. Okay, so moving on, Global Youth Summit is a part of Youthful Cities. So this is a 3-day digital event in November. And as I said, this is a part of the Youthful Cities programme. So it's an international summit where we're going to be hearing from speakers from all over the world, all over the globe, not just those other cities that we're working with, but we want to hear from people like everywhere, Botswana, Scotland, Australia, everywhere. But there will be a focus obviously on Coventry and Warwickshire. So we're really looking for people that are doing some stuff in the city. And what I mean by that is that the whole Youthful Cities programme is about young people who are activists. And you don't have to call yourself an activist. I know that's a big title, but it's more about the things that you're passionate about that you want to see change, or you're actually currently changing yourself. And that's a broad spectrum. That could be anything from environmentalism and climate change. That could be about politics and policy changes. That could be about the broad spectrum of diversity and what that may mean to you. So it's like, what are the things that you're angry and passionate about that you want to make a change? And the summit is going to capture that. So we're looking for people to do workshops, do talks, even performances, because it is a cultural event, an art event. We're trying to connect the conversation. So Clubhouse on iPhone has become quite popular. So we want to kind of do a version of that where we're just hosting spaces for people to have free conversations about things. We're looking for, and behind the scenes, we're looking for producers and working groups to put this together. So with the Global Youth Summit, we're at the very beginning of programming this, and it's in November. And so yeah, there's a lot of people that we need to be involved. 99% of the roles are paid as well. Most of the roles that I will talk about are paid. If they're not, I'll say. So out of that list there, the working group is the only one that wouldn't be paid, because that's just a volunteer way if you want to be part of the working group, but the rest will be. There is budget. And I think it's obviously important to pay people if you can as well, because yeah, you can't pay your rent on air. And so BBC Contains Strong Language. That is a 3-4-day festival with the BBC. It's a poetry and spoken word festival, and on the page this is all the things that we're looking for. So we're going to announce a big poet laureate and young people's poet laureate soon. And so sometimes poetry gets a bit of a bad rap because it kind of is a bit dry at school, but we're really looking for people that have a passion for words, poetry, spoken word and storytelling, essentially, to kind of be ambassadors. So that's a poet laureate scheme. We'll be working with Teresa Lola, who is the former poet laureate of London, and she's just ace. And there's other things that we're looking for. So again, all of these roles will be paid as well. I think the next page. Yeah, so that's just continuing what we're doing for Contain Strong Language. So it would be great if you can go on the City of Culture's social media pages to sign up, or to sign up to the newsletter, because all of these opportunities will come out, we're starting to come out. So look on like our social media and our website, definitely. But more importantly, we try to push it out to many different kind of groups and as much as possible, because I know not everybody has maybe signed up to our stuff. But I think it's really important for me to say is that all the conversations that everybody's been having today around the industry, how to get into it, things like this help, like being a part of stuff that's out there. Yes, we may only be looking for a few people per role, but sometimes it's really just about kind of having that confidence even to send an email, and I can give you access to my email to be like, look, is there anything that I can help with or be a part of, and kind of putting yourself out there. I know for me, when I work in the theatre industry, and I didn't know anybody. Oh my gosh, like that was so far from what my family did or anybody I knew. And it was really about being kind of obnoxious, where you're calling up and emailing and saying, hi, can I do work experience for a week? And then eventually somebody did say yes. Then the next person said yes, and the next person said yes. And then before you know it, I had like how many months worth of work experience on like my CV. And what I was saying before about collaboration, a lot of it was coming together with people that you know or whatever, and be like, let's do something together. Whatever it is that you're kind of interested in, let's kind of do this together. And what's great these days is that you don't have to go to uni, or you don't have to have the most expensive equipment or whatever. You can kind of do this yourself. So my advice would be to definitely take up all of the opportunities that you see, that you hear from. City of Culture is only going to come about here. It's not going to come about anymore. It'll move on to another city. Like the last one was in Hull, and they come about every 4 years. And so the next one probably wouldn't be the West Midlands, because Coventry, it's here now. So the next one will be somewhere else. So I would suggest take up any opportunity that you can to be a part of it. There's, as I said, there's paid opportunities, and there's also volunteering opportunities. And even though, we were talking before about, getting paid, but some of those volunteering ones is also something great on your CV as well. So for me, it's just taking up any opportunity that you can, if you're able to. And what's great about this is that it doesn't matter your ability. It doesn't matter, like there's completely accessible as well. Like we're really about, when we talk about diversity, and when we really mean it. So this is not just a tick boxing. This is really about, and anyone that knows me knows, wow, I'm the loudest voice when it comes to kind of making sure that all of our programs are accessible. I maybe to the point of annoyance, where I'm making sure, hang on, is this represented? Why am I only seeing me in this space? So any chance I get. So whoever you are out there listening in, don't watch any of that, just apply for things. And I said, if you don't get the opportunity, find out if there's anything else happening across the whole. This is just my programs. There are still like loads more that'll be coming up. That's why I say, please sign up to the newsletter and stuff, because there are so many opportunities. We're working across, 100 and something different programs across the year. Like it's really massive. When we say like it's big, it's really big. And it's only going to come to the West Midlands or Coventry once, so try to kind of sign up. There are going to be more opportunities. There's with the Youthful Cities one they're talking about at the beginning, there's an opportunity to work with the Nairobi teams on digital platforms. So that all of this is upcoming, So yeah, please kind of get in touch. If Chris and Martina can hand out my CV, I'm cool. That's what, my CV, my email, because that's what when I speak at these events, it's definitely to get in touch with people. I don't want it just to be, we're just a website or a thing, you can't access us. And my email is also on the website. So yeah, if there's anything that you even want to talk with, or I can connect you with other people and other organizations, let's do it. Because I know how it can be a bit tricky and it can be hard, but yeah, just kind of ask, just ask, have a conversation. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you so much, Titi. So this kind of closes our time together. I want to thank very, very, from the bottom of my heart, Olivia and Katie, for being great hosts and for kind of designing this whole session. So thank you so much, Katie and Olivia. And thank you so much for our speakers for sharing with us with honesty and passion about their lives. So thank you so much, guys. And of course, thank you for WDC for letting us come up with this session that was intended to be for young creatives as part of Sparks, and also for their support generally with our activities. We come up with a lot of crazy things and we put them to them, and they're always really supportive. So thank you so much. There are two things that I'm gonna remind everybody. So on Friday, we are running Creative Mornings. We've talked a lot about Creative Mornings in this session. So if you want to know what Creative Mornings is, although it's online, it's not got the wow factor of actually meeting together, but hey ho, we are in this. So everything is online, we have to adapt. Come this Friday at 8 a.m. as we welcome Heather Golding from Tony G. And then the week after, we actually want to hear from young people about the plans for the Creative Quarter. So we are hosting an informal chat with young creative freelancers. You can find all the information you need to join and have your say about the plans, about the creative quarters, what you would like, what you need as a creative. Is it workshop space? Is it studio space? Is it selling platform? Come and tell us what you need, and workshop ideas, meet other creatives. You can find all the information about how to join on our website at creativeleamington.co.uk/LYT LYT Lab. I hope that was correct. And that's it. Do you wanna...
No, I think that's everything. Just like to say, echo what Martina said. Thank you very much for all of the speakers today and our two hosts. And yeah, thanks for being here. Cheers.